hogy hogyan halt meg Michael Jackson. Az utolsó órái Michael Jacksonnak. Én ezt meg akarom nézni. Amúgy jó volt, mindenki, aki nem nézte meg a Michael Jackson filmet, nézze meg.
The singer Michael Jackson is reported to have died from a heart attack.
To UCLA's medical center, but it appeared it was already. He arrived in hospital in a deep coma and has died.
Szóval a csávóról, aki a világszerte, érted? Szóval mai napig vannak olyan fanyai, akik még meg sem születtek. A csávó 5 percen keresztül állt a színpadon mozdulatlanul, és annyira üvöltöttek és örültek neki az emberek, hogy valaki elájult, érted? Fennállt a színpadon, és aurát farbolt. Az ember, ő az aura definíciója. Michael Jackson.
2:26 p.m. on June the 25th, 2009. Michael Jackson, controversial megastar, entertainer and pop icon, is pronounced dead in Los Angeles.
Brother Jermaine says no one gave up.
Jackson is just 50 years old.
The sidewalk outside the hospital quickly became a strange mix of grieving for a loss and celebrating a unique brand of music.
His sudden and unexplained death sparks a police investigation that questions every detail of his passing.
Benne volt is az Epstein file-ban. De jó, az Epstein file-ok egyébként nem mindenki, az, hogy az Epstein file-on valaki rajta van, az nem azt jelenti, hogy mindegyik az, aki rosszat csinált egyébként. De aztán ki tudja.
Jackson's body was choppered to USC.
But it's his lifeless body that reveals the most telling answers.
Was unceremoniously loaded into a van and driven to the LA County Coroner's Office.
Hát akar, most mentet is meg egy csomó gyereket egyébként az ilyen Epstein szigetről, meg szóval, hogy ő ugye a film is elmondja azt, hogy valószínűleg azért lett ilyen kicsit fura, mert ugye sokat verte az apja, meg ilyen elnyomott volt, meg ugye már 5 éves kora óta nem volt szabad élete, mert azóta folyamatosan ugye híres volt, emberek vették körbe, nem élhetett egy rendes életet, meg nem úgy élt, mint egy gyerek, hanem dolgozott munka, ebből állt az egész élete, és ezt később akarta megélni, mert nem lehettek új barátai, mert mindegyik csak fotózkodni akart vele, meg ilyesmi, és később ezt így felnőttként így kicsit ilyen mentális beteg lett ezzel kapcsolatban, olyan, mint egy nagy gyerek. Tehát voltak zsiráfjai, volt majma, akkor csúszzázott a gyerekekkel, meg érted, mindegy, játszott, érted, jobban élvezte, mint a gyerekek.
By a team of medical experts.
It is believed he suffered cardiac arrest in his home. However, the cause of his death was unknown until results of the autopsy are known.
Well-renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Richard Shepard has been performing high-profile autopsies for more than 25 years.
Hát, ha igaz a film, amit kiraktak róla, és nem csak egy ilyen csináltok Michael Jacksonról egy filmet, de akkor jó képet mutassatok róla type-beat, hanem tényleg olyan volt, ami volt, mert például amikor kigyulladt a haja, és ott voltak az égési sérültek között, akkor oda ment az égési sérültek közé, és akkor mondta, hogy segít rajtuk, amit kapott pénzt a Pepsi, ugye a Pepsi baleset után, azt nem tudom, 20 millió dollárt, azt mindannak a kórháznak adta, meg stb.
He was the expert witness at inquests into the deaths of Princess Diana, Jill Dando, and victims of the 9/11 attacks.
The fascinating thing about
Azt még valahol láttam, hogy 4,8 milliárd rajongója volt, amikor még csak 5 milliárdan éltek a Földön. Mondom, olyan rajongói vannak a Michael Jacksonnak, akiknek még meg sem születtek, vágod? Szóval fixen lesznek 20 év múlva gyerekek, akik most születnek, akik Michael Jackson fognak hallgatni. Mai napig beszélünk róla, ő marad. Ő már 20 éve meghalt. És még mindig a top. Még mindig olyan szinteken van a Michael Jackson, hogy nem tudsz ember tenni a neve mellé, úgy, hogy ne vicc legyen, amit mondasz.
Autopsy is it doesn't just tell you how a person died. It can tell you even more about how they lived. It is non-judgmental. It is a scientific acquisition of facts. And the fact that an individual is a celebrity makes no difference at all.
Köze nincsen hozzá.
There are no
Now Richard Shepard will forensically unpick Jackson's autopsy and piece together what happened in the final hours of his life.
Hát erről beszéltem. Bármit mondasz, hogy Michael Jacksonhoz közel ki van, vicc, amit mondasz, érted? Vicc. Nem tudsz egy embert mondani. Nincs jelenleg ember az utcán, aki sétál, és megkérdez, hogy szia, ismer Michael Jackson, és azt mondja, hogy nem. 20 éve halott. Megkérdezhetsz 15 éves, 20 éves, érted? Bárkit.
This is the coroner's report into the death of Michael Jackson.
Elton John.
These
Sem,
hard,
közel
cold
sincs.
medical facts tell us who he was and what he
De
was
közel vagy
doing.
hozzá lehet.
But more than that, they give us a
Ronaldo
timeline
sem.
of the
Ronaldo
events leading up to his death.
Közel sem.
June the 20th.
Mondom, a csávó internet, tévé minden nélkül hatalmasabb, több szorzót ráver a legnagyobb emberekre, mint most, akik vannak, akiknek van internet, meg tévés. Szóval az a csávó, Michael Jackson akkor ért volna, amikor volt internet, meg minden, a Prime-ja, Caputo.
4th, 2009. Jackson is renting a mansion in Beverly Hills.
No.
In just 19 days' time, he will embark on a sell-out 50-date residency at London's O2 Arena. 40 years previously, Michael Jackson had burst onto the music scene. As the lead singer with the Jackson 5, he was propelled to international megastardom.
Michael Jackson was the king of pop.
Helyes csávó volt amúgy.
He was a king
Amikor legelőször megmutatta az órát, akkor még helyes csávó volt.
of entertaining. He did things that no one else could do.
Csak hát aztán ugye,
He was
fejbe szállt.
untouchable.
Jackson was the most
Yeah,
successful
the
entertainer the world has ever seen.
Nézd meg!
Combined song and concert sales netted him an
The man.
estimated $750 million. But by June 2009, his
Ja,
personal
milliárdos lett a
fortune had
csávó.
all but gone. High-profile court cases and reckless spending had left him on the brink of bankruptcy.
Michael Jackson had essentially been a recluse for 12 years, not touring, not really having any huge record releases like his past. He was around $400 million in debt.
Olyan $500 milliárd
He also
adóssága
had
volt.
over 30 lawsuits
Hogy?
lined up against him.
Ja, hát igen, ugye ezek a gyerekek.
For Jackson, there was only one way out. To ease his debt, he must perform a grueling schedule of concerts in London.
Kiméletű koncert
To
Londonban.
ensure his health and fitness, he's depending on his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray. But Jackson would never make opening night.
Ja, igen. Ezt láttam mondja, hogy találkozunk júniusba, június eljött, de Michael Jackson nem, mert ugye meghalt.
So looking at the autopsy, the first thing we see is it's a male of approximately 50 years. There are no significant injuries, but there are some grazes and abrasions to the center of the chest. I don't think these are significant in causing his death, and I do know that he's had quite prolonged and extensive resuscitation, and these injuries are typical of that type of resuscitation.
Jackson's life was dogged with moments that were both controversial and bizarre. And the secrets revealed by his autopsy are no different.
The autopsy report states that he's black, and that is, of course, correct. But if you looked at the body objectively, not knowing it was Michael Jackson, it wouldn't be that clear-cut.
Mert mi van?
Millions of column inches have been devoted to the subject of Michael's skin.
Ja, ugye volt ez a bőrbetegség, hogy feje lett.
Was he turning white? Was he turning himself white? These are the questions that everyone wanted to know.
És megmondjátok, vagy most mi van?
Jackson always claimed that his pallid appearance was due to a rare skin disease, but few believed him.
You can see from the autopsy that just as Jackson maintained, he did have a skin condition. In the darker areas, there are lighter blotches, and it appears that in these lighter blotches, the skin has stopped producing pigment.
Aha. Na, akkor igaza volt.
Cells
Szóval akkor
called
ténylegesen ez történt,
melanocytes
szóval nem
produce
félretettem
a
volna.
dark pigment, melanin, that colors the skin. But these cells are absent in the autopsy.
And without these, the skin is pale, and that explains Jackson's appearance. And it's consistent with a disease called vitiligo.
Just as Jackson had always insisted, he did have a rare skin problem. But he also made other claims about his appearance.
In February 1993, Michael goes on the Oprah Winfrey Show and tells 62 million Americans that he doesn't bleach his skin, he doesn't use products to do that,
But evidence found at the crime scene shows this wasn't true. Jackson spent large amounts of money on a skin bleaching drug called
Ők az a baj, hogy ha már tényleg, őről úgy beszélünk, hogy ő volt a zenész, érted? Szóval ő a világon a legnagyobb valaha. És gondolj bele, hogyha most egy kisebb zenészek is miket kapnak, akkor a világ legnagyobbja nyilván fogja kapni a sarat mindenért. Főleg, hogy egy csórinak ilyen betegségei vannak.
Getting treatment for his vitiligo from a doctor called Arnold Klein for about 25 years.
Based in Beverly Hills, Klein was the dermatologist to the stars. His other clients included Elizabeth Taylor, Carrie Fisher, and Sharon Stone. Klein recommended this lotion to Jackson when they first met. It prevents dark pigment being made in areas unaffected by vitiligo.
Okay.
For half of his life, Jackson had been bleaching his skin. And the king of pop was fixated with his appearance.
There were several scars on his face and neck that are typical of previous plastic surgery.
Most mi van?
And he'd had a cleft in his
life unaffected by vitiligo. For half of his life, Jackson had been bleaching his skin.
Akkor most mégis fejérítette a bőrét.
Was fixated with his appearance.
Oda volt a kinézet.
There were several scars on his face and neck that are typical of previous plastic surgery. And he'd had a cleft inserted into his chin, which would certainly have changed his appearance. The nose shows extensive signs of modification. It's caved in on one side and the bridge is entirely missing. And this is one of the signs of extensive plastic surgery.
His brothers used to tease him about the size of his nose, calling him Big Nose. It really left an emotional scar on him. And the minute he found out about plastic surgery, he began to have work on his nose.
Over the years, Jackson visited the surgeon's table again and again, changing not only his nose, but almost his entire face.
Hát, ja, mondjuk ez jogos.
In the press, he became known as Wacko
Szóval így volt,
Jacko.
akkor végigfejlítette az egészet akkor már.
But the autopsy reveals he did manage to keep one secret from the media for 25 years.
Jackson's hair is not his own. He's wearing a wig.
Igen,
it's held on by semi-permanent glue, and there's some sparse areas of his own hair on the sides and the back of his head.
Other than these patches, the king of pop was almost entirely bald. Despite being a tabloid target, he kept this hidden for over a quarter of a century.
His scalp reveals the reason for his baldness. There's an area of scarring on the top of the back of his head.
Igen, mert az a Pepsi reklám. Igen. Leégett a haja.
In 1984, Jackson was at the height of his powers. His album Thriller had become the biggest-selling album of all time.
Így van.
But filming a Pepsi commercial with his brothers would mark the start of his decline. When a pyrotechnic device set fire to his hair. He suffered severe second and third degree burns to his scalp, which left him needing to wear wigs for the rest of his life.
Itt majdnem no more Michael Jackson voltam, csak mondom.
Michael never recovered from that. The Pepsi incident changed Michael's career forever.
A Michael Jackson film
Michael became extremely self-conscious about his appearance.
Igen, tudom, hogy nincsen már YouTube-on live.
He became extremely paranoid about the people around him. He felt damaged, he felt hurt, he felt betrayed.
The accident also triggered a habit that would eventually claim his life. Recovering from his injuries, he became hooked on painkillers. These were gateway drugs that led to multiple drug addictions.
So a
gateway drug is something that you can buy over the counter. And because they're so hugely available, it means that people who may be susceptible to wanting to take harder drugs can get involved in that process. So you may start on paracetamol and then you may lead up onto much more dangerous drugs.
Over the years, Jackson also became dependent on sedatives, alcohol, anti-anxiety drugs, and even morphine. Without prescription drugs, he could not function, sing, dance, or perform.
I love you. I really do. You have to know that.
But 6 months before his death, Jackson announced a punishing schedule of 50 concerts.
I'll be performing the songs my fans want to hear.
Ez az, amikor mondja, hogy ma júniusban találkozunk, de azután már nem volt semmi.
This is it. I mean, this is really it. This is the final curtain call.
Before rehearsals began, Michael Jackson was telling everyone how excited he was about coming out and reclaiming his crown as the king of pop, and also showing his kids what he could do on the global stage.
But behind closed doors, the promoters, AEG, were concerned that Jackson wasn't up to performing his trademark high-energy routines. They began to question health scares published by the press. His personal doctor, Conrad Murray, assured them that apart from bouts of insomnia, Jackson was in good physical condition.
Okay.
But not everyone was so convinced.
That's key.
Terry Harvey is a music promoter with close links to the Jackson family.
How fit for someone to have to be in to perform for 2.5 hours in good shape? Do I think Michael didn't have the energy or the stamina for 50 nights? He did not have the stamina to do 30 minutes.
Oh. So akkor itt már szarul volt.
Michael knew deep down there was no way he'd be able to perform 50 shows.
Hát akkor mi
Michael
jelentette
told
be?
people close to him he didn't know if he could do 2 shows.
So what was the truth about Jackson's fitness? Was he really up to the tour?
The report says that he's 136 pounds in weight and he's 5'9" tall, which gives a BMI of 20.1, which is normal. So although he appears slightly thin, he is within the acceptable range. You might expect some furring up of the arteries in a man aged 50, but Michael Jackson had no evidence of this. And his heart was in good condition too. So for a man of his age, he was in good shape.
Yet Jackson was clearly in trouble at the rehearsals. He seemed short of breath.
Bro, nézd YouTube-ra, kibannolták. Bannolták. Miért fáj annyira az életem úgy nekem? Miért kell az Istennek így ütni engem? Nem bannolták, csak szimplán letiltották a streamet.
Stiff and unable to perform the routines he was famous for. In the autopsy, Richard Shepard has found a reason for Jackson's lackluster performance.
Several x-rays were taken of Michael Jackson. They showed he had osteoarthritis in some of his fingers and his spine.
That's me.
The vertebrae in the spine are cushioned by areas of cartilage. In osteoarthritis, the cartilage degenerates and the bones are left unprotected.
Oh.
This places pressure on the joints, and in extreme circumstances, the bones can grind together.
Yes, persze pont Michael Jacksonnak kellett, akik sokat mozog.
Some pain and stiffness and might limit his movements.
Osteoarthritis could explain why he was struggling with movement. But it couldn't explain why he was struggling to breathe.
Most of his organs were in good condition for his age. The exception is his lungs, and they were like a battlefield. The lining of the airways showed a lot of damage, and both lungs showed widespread inflammation and quite extensive scarring. For Michael Jackson, it would have made it harder for him to exert himself, and he would have fatigued more easily. And the next question I would want to ask is, what's caused all this damage?
No, it's me.
A possible explanation is written all over Jackson's face. In his mid-20s, he developed a symmetrical red rash around his cheeks.
Ami azt jelenti, hogy
a classic symptom of another rare skin disease, discoid lupus, which causes hair to fall out anywhere on the body and can damage the lips.
Csávónak mindenfajta betegsége volt, 100 fajta betegsége született.
Dark tattoos on his eyebrows.
Szóval Csávónak amennyit adott az Isten, annyit el is vett tőle.
Tattoos on the eyelids like eyeliner, and he'd also got tattoos in pink around his lips.
Lupus would also explain Jackson's habit of using umbrellas.
A pink az nagyon csúnyán nézett ki, ez egy kicsit lehetett volna emberi szín.
The disease leaves skin sensitive to sunlight. And it doesn't only affect the skin, it can wreak havoc across the whole body.
Lupus is an autoimmune disease, and these diseases occur when the body attacks parts of itself.
Érdemes megnézni a filmet, igen.
White blood cells usually attack foreign invaders in the body. But in lupus, these cells strike at the body itself, including the lungs, leaving them heavily damaged.
They're chronic diseases with episodes of remission and recurrence. And their recurrence can be triggered by a number of things: stress, exertion, and lack of sleep.
Hát ez szerintem ebből mind a
But is
három
there an
megvolt.
alternative
Ebből mind a három megvolt
explanation for
szerintem.
Jackson's lung damage? For 25 years, an increasingly unstable and drug-dependent Jackson had been visiting the clinic of dermatologist Dr. Arnold Klein. According to those who worked there, these visits had become less and less about his skin.
He would be in the office a couple times a week, have very minor procedures done. When he got to the office, I would take him in the back door and put him in the procedure room, and at that point I'd go get Dr. Klein's nurse, Ellen, and say, Michael's here and he wants a shot.
On every visit, he'd receive at least one injection.
És ez mit csinál az injekció?
The syringe was full of Demerol, a powerful medical version of heroin.
Usually the effects were pretty quick. He might pass out, he might be just tired, he might be loopy.
And Jackson didn't always come to see Dr. Klein alone.
If he was with the kids, that would be a little bit of a distraction for him. The kids would usually sit in Dr. Klein's office. They'd be running and screaming and joking, and it would be a lot of fun. Until Michael got really out of it.
As the tour approached, Jackson's requests for these injections became more and more frequent.
He would come in and he would demand to see Dr. Klein quickly. He would want his shot of Demerol as quickly as possible. And you could tell that there was something going on.
By taking the drug, Jackson risked severe lung damage, addiction, and even death. So could Demerol be implicated in Jackson's sudden passing?
Valószínűleg mindenfajta drog hozzájárul.
The autopsy shows there are no significant injuries on the body, and there's no evidence of any significant
kíváncsi
disease.
vagyok, hogyha az a Pepsi drog nem történik meg, akkor valószínűleg, vagy akkor ezek a dolgok úgy megtörténnek el.
And so we turn to the next stage. We look for the telltale chemical clues in the body, the toxicology report.
Jackson had well-publicized problems with prescription drugs. He'd been in rehab several times and had admitted to addictions to painkillers.
Nem tudom elképzelni, hogy ennyire szétdrogozza magát.
In 2009, he was also having frequent injections of Demerol, a pharmacological equivalent of heroin. And by early June, Jackson was struggling at the rehearsals for his This Is It tour.
Jó volt a film.
Demerol is an incredibly powerful drug. So if you were to turn up at rehearsals on it, the reality is you'd be disoriented, you'd be dizzy, you'd also struggle with your breath. It creates a shortness of breath. Now this is literally the opposite of what is required when you're performing.
But in just 19 days' time, Jackson was due to embark on his record-breaking 50-date residency in London.
Michael Jackson's mind was not ready. While publicly he was telling people, yes, I can do this, it was clear by the way he was not turning up to rehearsals, ignoring important production meetings. This man was not ready for the This Is It comeback.
The situation became so desperate that the tour's producer, Kenny Ortega, sent an impassioned email to the promoters.
My concern is He appeared quite weak and fatigued this evening. He had a terrible case of the chills, was trembling, rambling, and obsessing. Everything in me says he should be psychologically evaluated. Oh, I believe that he really wants this. It would shatter him, break his heart if we pulled the plug. He's terribly frightened. It's all going to go away. It broke my heart. He was like a lost boy.
So folyamatosan arról beszéltek, hogy milyen szarálapodó.
He can rise to the occasion if we get him the help he needs. Sincerely, Ken.
The promoters issued Jackson an ultimatum. Shape up or they would pull the plug. $400 million in debt. For Jackson, this was not an option.
$400 millió
adósság. It was clear that this was about the money being on the line. For Michael, he didn't have a choice. He had to be there or he would lose his home, his kids would be homeless, and he would be in financial ruin.
Hogy tudsz $400 millió mínuszba lenni?
5 days earlier at the Staples Center, Jackson had been struggling with the rehearsals. He seemed sluggish and not in control of his body. But the effect of the promoter's threat was stunning. His next performance was described as electric by members of the production team. He was agile, lively, and like the Michael Jackson of old.
Suddenly, he makes a miraculous recovery. He gets on stage, he performs 30 to 40 minutes, and he's dancing, he's singing and performing in a way which make them a lot happier.
So how did a 50-year-old man with osteoarthritis, lupus, scarred lungs, and an addiction to Demerol manage to turn it around?
Még több droggal, nem?
The clues lie in Jackson's body, and yet another narcotic.
Ja, gondoltam. Még több drog.
Extensive toxicological testing was performed on
Amikor a drogokkal által okozott problémát még több droggal oldod meg.
Samples taken from Jackson's body.
Na ez a lejtő.
In the urine sample, it was noted that a drug called ephedrine was present. Ephedrine is similar to the naturally occurring adrenaline in the body. And adrenaline is the hormone that prepares the body for fight or flight. When Jackson took ephedrine, it would have been to energize himself.
Jackson had turned to yet another drug.
Ki gondolta volna?
In his house, police discovered tablets of ECA, a powerful stimulant made from caffeine, aspirin, and ephedrine.
Töltőgáz.
At high levels, this drug can trigger cardiac
És az miért van ott az a kés?
The ultimate cause of Jackson's death.
Because the ephedrine is only present in the urine and not in his blood, it can't be having an effect on Jackson's body, and so it can't have contributed to his death.
But the autopsy throws up a further narcotic surprise.
The toxicology analysis looked for but did not find Demerol, and this shows that Jackson hadn't been taking the drug for some time.
Jackson made it through his make-or-break rehearsal by loading his body with stimulants and coming off the heroin-like drug Demerol. But as he returned to his Carrollwood mansion, this strategy would have deadly repercussions. Because suddenly coming off Demerol is highly risky.
The effects of withdrawing from Demerol can be very, very difficult. In fact, if you try to do it on your own, it's downright dangerous. You have issues such as fever, you'll feel a sense of cold turkey, so aches and pains, and one of the biggest side effects is insomnia.
Jackson had been plagued by this sleeping disorder throughout his adult life. Now, he is full of stimulants and in withdrawal from Demerol. But his doctor, Conrad Murray, had no idea Jackson had been taking this drug, let alone that he'd suddenly stopped. Michael Jackson hid his drug habits well.
While at the location conducting one of several searches, we located a number of bottles of prescription medication, not only in Mr. Jackson's name, but in 4 or 5 aliases.
Nevet is. Mik vannak ott? Rá van írva? Arnold Omar.
Although the majority of these drugs were prescribed by Murray, some were recorded with other doctors' names.
Klein, Dwayne James.
I'm not saying he was devious. He's the king of manipulation. He was the puppet master. He can tell you what you want to hear, and
Szóval már megpróbált lejönni róla, tudta, hogy baj van.
and guess what? You go, okay, he's all right. Come on, let's go.
And Murray was ripe for manipulation. Like Jackson, he was deep in debt.
Milyen eladósodott.
If the London shows didn't go ahead, he too would be financially ruined. One of his roles was to ensure Jackson could sleep. But the autopsy report suggests this would be problematic.
He does have an enlarged prostate, which is not
azért, hogyha bepisil.
at all unusual for a 50-year-old man. And this might mean he has some difficulty in urination. It might mean he has to go to the toilet more often.
Gyakran kell menni WC-re.
Michael had a condom catheter that
Obszer katéter.
he used during his sleep time so that he did not have to wake up or be woken up to go in and use the bathroom.
But Murray's master plan to get Jackson to sleep also had a more sinister pharmaceutical element.
One drug really stands out in the toxicology, and that's propofol. Propofol is an anesthetic agent, which is normally only used in operating theatres and intensive care units. It's a very powerful drug. Due to its appearance and its effects, it's sometimes known as milk of amnesia.
Jackson had been using propofol as a sleep aid for nearly a decade.
In early 2000s, he was in the hospital one time. They administered Michael propofol, and he said he really liked the drug and became dependent on it and would get doctors to administer it to him.
Over the years, this dependency escalated.
He called me up one Sunday night and he says, Jason, I need an anesthesiologist. And I said, what do you need an anesthesiologist for, Michael? And he says, well, I've got a media spot in the morning and I need to be fresh for it. I said, this is crazy. I said, I don't understand. I had never in my life heard of anything like this, ever. I was just flabbergasted.
By June 2009, Conrad Murray was feeding Jackson's propofol addiction in the star's own house. For Jackson, it was the ideal drug.
Propofol is a very useful drug because you go to sleep quickly and you wake up cleanly with no hangover. But the line between risk and use can be very narrow, and too much drug can cause fatalities.
Murray has been giving Jackson propofol for 60 nights in a row.
Az sok.
But aware of the promoter's ultimatum, he has decided to wean Jackson off the drug.
Hogy ő leszoktatja, most így gondolta, én meg kell a pénz, mi?
He sent Jackson off to sleep using drugs called benzodiazepines instead. And he administered them in an unusual way.
És szokatlan módon adta be neki.
The autopsy report shows an intravenous injection site below the knee. This is a very rare site for any medical or resuscitation treatment, but it's a common site for intravenous drug abuse. Unlike the arms, an injection site on the knee is hidden away and keeps the drug abuse a secret.
Szóval ezért le akarta titkolni, ezért adta neki a térdének.
You have to consider the fact that people are watching you all the time. You're being observed and your profile is very important to you. So it's not actually unusual for people to inject in areas like the penis, the groin, under the toenails, for example, anything that would distract people around them from seeing that they had an issue.
No way. The
reality is that this is such a sad thing to see because we know that the user is aware of their problems and aware that they don't want other people to know about them. It means that the user recognizes that they have an issue. They just don't want to share that issue.
At 1:30 a.m. on the 25th of June 2009, Conrad Murray gives Jackson a tablet he hopes will help him sleep.
There is Valium in his system. Valium is a benzodiazepine drug which is used to treat anxiety, but commonly causes some sedation. It is an addictive drug, and long-term use can lead to physical dependence.
But 30 minutes later, Jackson is still awake. Murray turns to a faster-acting benzodiazepine sedative, lorazepam.
Szana szétdrogozza a csávót.
After an hour, Jackson still hasn't fallen asleep. So Murray tries a third benzodiazepine, midazolam.
It may be a little unusual to find 3 different types of benzodiazepine at the same time, but it seems likely if the intent is to get someone to sleep that one would start with a long-acting Valium-type drug, move to the medium-acting lorazepam, and then finally have to try the very short-acting midazolam. So in this situation, it does make sense.
Okay.
Throughout the early hours, Murray gives Jackson more and more benzodiazepines.
Reggel 7, és még mindig nem aludt.
But they have no effect.
Bár néha én is így érzem magam egyébként. Nem bírok aludni.
By 10 a.m., a desperate Jackson asks for his drug of choice, his milk.
My milk.
He wants propofol. But Murray resists.
My milk.
Nem adja oda neki.
Jackson protests. He can't function without sleep and will have to cancel the concerts.
Azért tud elaludni, mert rászokott egy drogra, és most le akar szokni róla, aminek a meleg hatása az, hogy nem tud aludni.
At 10:50 a.m., Conrad Murray finally relents and prepares a dose of propofol.
Szóval végre beadja a drágát, és ad neki propofolt.
As this drug burns when it enters the body, Murray adds a local anesthetic, lidocaine, to numb the pain.
Szóval még lidocain, propofol, benzilol, minden van.
Jackson is unconscious at last.
Eszméletlen. Hát már valószínűleg meghal. Most. Ez az este.
15 minutes later, Conrad Murray re-enters the singer's bedroom.
Michael! Michael! Michael!
Jackson is not breathing. But Murray thinks he can feel a pulse.
Michael!
He searches for flumazenil, a drug that reverses the effects of benzodiazepines.
És a legesről megint az, hogy beszúrjon neki valamit. Szóval a csávó már 800. dolgot szúrja be. Hogy lenne ez a megoldás?
Fire paramedic 33, what is your emergency?
Sir, we have a gentleman here that needs help, and he's not breathing yet. He's not breathing. Trying to pump him, but he's not.
Okay. Okay, how old is he?
He's 50 years old, sir.
50. Okay.
He's not breathing, sir.
Okay, and he's not conscious either.
He's not conscious, sir.
Okay. Is he on the floor? Where's he at right now?
He's on the bed, sir. He's on the bed.
Okay, let's get him on the floor.
Okay.
Okay, let's get him down to the floor. I'm gonna help you with CPR right now, okay?
We need him to get. We need a.
Yes, we're already on our way there. We're on our way. I'm gonna do as much as I can to help you over the phone. We're already on our way. Did anybody see him?
Yes, we have a personal doctor here with him, sir.
Oh, you have a doctor there?
Yes, but he's not responding to CPR or anything.
Okay. Did anybody witness what happened?
No, just the doctor, sir. The doctor's the only one here. He's pumping his chest, but he's not responding to anything, sir.
Okay, we're on our way.
Okay, over here.
By the time the paramedics arrive, Murray can no longer detect a pulse.
Check his airways clear. Got that yet? I'm not getting a pulse. Give me a line. Clear. Come on.
Jackson's body is rushed to hospital. But it's too late.
At 14:26, on the 25th of June 2009, Michael Joseph Jackson was declared dead at the UCLA Medical Center, Los Angeles. The autopsy report concludes that his cause of death was acute propofol intoxication with a contributory factor in the death being benzodiazepines.
A tényezők a benzo... Szóval az, hogy mind a kettőt beadta neki.
Once in the bloodstream, both these drugs spread around the body. When they reach the lungs, they have a profound effect. They slow the rate the lungs inflate and deflate, so critically decreasing their ability to oxygenate the body.
And you've got to remember that Jackson had really bad lungs. And these things combined have caused the oxygen in his bloodstream to get to such a low level that his heart and his brain have stopped working and he has died.
Aha, szóval, hogy alapjáraton szar volt a tüdeje, beadta neki ezt a kettő cuccot, ami még jobban legyengítette a tüdejét, ezért nem jutott elég oxigén sem az agyába, sem a szívébe, és ebbe halt bele.
2 months after his death, the autopsy results were announced.
The LA County coroner has ruled Michael Jackson's death a homicide.
The prime suspect was Dr. Conrad Murray. He was tried for involuntary manslaughter. At the trial, the smoking gun was propofol.
Conrad Murray states that he gave Jackson 25 milligrams of propofol at 10:40 a.m. And yet the toxicology report shows there was far more than that in Jackson's bloodstream when he died. So the question remains, how are we going to explain this discrepancy?
Misplaced trust.
In court, Murray claimed that this anomaly was not of his doing. He suggested it was all down to the other person in the room, Jackson himself.
And Dr. Murray left the room. Michael Jackson self-administered a dose, an additional dose of propofol.
Rá akarják tenni Michael Jacksonra arra, hogy ő szúrta saját be magának. Mondd, hogy nem, mondd, ezt nem viszik el neki.
But the prosecution had a different version of events. A version that implicated Murray as guilty.
Conrad Murray's actions directly caused the death of Michael Jackson.
They claimed Murray had cobbled together a system that kept Jackson continually topped up with propofol whilst he slept. Murray cut into the lid of a bottle of the drug. Once in the saline bag, the propofol could then infuse constantly into Jackson's bloodstream. Normally, saline coming down from the bag mixes with drugs injected at a port and washes them into the body. The prosecution maintained the drug was already mixed with the saline. So, there should be traces of propofol in the tube above the injection port. Despite testing, traces of the drug were never detected. The prosecution claimed there must be a second tube, and Murray had hidden it in the pocket of his combat trousers. But this missing piece of piping was never recovered, casting doubts on the prosecution's version of events.
Mi van? Nem mondod, hogy... Mindjárt kiderül úgyis.
Yet this didn't sway the jury.
I am advised that the jury has reached a verdict.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Conrad Robert Murray, guilty of the crime of involuntary manslaughter.
Burn in hell.
And the autopsy supports the court's verdict.
Okay.
Conrad Murray failed in his duty as a doctor.
Igen. Hát azért neki kéne értenie mindenhez.
There's a very fine line between its proper effects and causing death.
Igen, a csávó, aki szét van drogozva, nem bír aludni már, vagy mindegy 40 órája, ott fekszik, döglődik, de majd még ő felkel, beadja magának a szurit, aztán bravo.
An anesthesiologist would have the patient attached to numerous machines which would monitor pulse and blood pressure, carbon dioxide levels and oxygen levels.
But investigators found no evidence of any medical monitors in the mansion. Murray was sentenced to 4 years in prison for killing the King of Pop.
4 évet. 4 évet. Okay.
In a 40-year career, Jackson had established himself as the most successful act of all time. But his success had long been underpinned by a reliance on prescription drugs.
It was such a tragedy seeing him go from this huge, larger-than-life figure down this road of drug dependency. These drugs had turned him into just a shell of his former self.
He didn't have a choice. He was around $400 million in debt. This is it. It was his make or break comeback.
He was on a path of destruction. When you walk off into that devil's den, some of us make it out, some of us don't.
Jackson's life had been full of turmoil and controversy.
Az a baj, szar, főleg, hogy most megnéztem a filmet, ezek után ilyen...